Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of All the WrestleManias, the podcast. I'm your co-host, Tim Hackman.
And I'm your co-host, Rich Sigwald.
Our episode today is all about WrestleMania 19 from way back in 2003. We think it's probably a so-so show with a few surprising highlights. Well, we've got lots to get into, so hit the theme music, Rich. Again to all the WrestleManias. We really hope you enjoyed our most recent episode on the 1985 Wrestling Classic. That was a lot of fun to watch, a lot of fun to talk about. That episode is up now on allthewrestlemanias.podbean.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. You can check it out and let us know what you think by email at WrestlemaniaBlog@gmail.com or on Twitter at WrestlemaniaPod. We're super excited this time to have our first listener mail. Look at us. Get hype. Oh, we got an email at WrestlemaniaBlog@gmail.com from Kathy B. in York, PA, who asked us for our take on Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns and the possible unification of the two major WWE titles at the next WrestleMania. So we're actually going to postpone answering this fully as we're working on a preview episode for WrestleMania 38. But I don't know, Rich, did you have any take on whether those belts will actually be unified at 38 as the buzz seems to indicate?
I mean, they need to do it, but I also think it would be quite monumental because it would be an end of a long era of like the brand split and the two different titles. And I feel like it would kind of bring back a magnificence to the meaning of having the WWE World Heavyweight title and not just either the heavyweight champion or the WWE champion. And so I think that would be really good for also like the lineage, because like the NWA old belt is in there and the WCW belt's in there. And so it'd be really nice to just have it all back to like they are the world champion.
Yeah, I think I agree. I'd like to see them do the same with the women's two titles, actually, too. You know, this is very fortuitous timing, actually, because this WrestleMania 19 that we're going to talk about today is actually the first one with the separate, after the brand split and after they had introduced the new World Heavyweight Championship, which was introduced for Raw in September of 2002. So about, 6 months before WrestleMania 19. And then the WWE Undisputed Championship became the WWE Championship and the primary belt for SmackDown. So it's kind of funny that actually this question comes up, and WrestleMania 38 is just over on the horizon, right as we're getting to the very first WrestleMania where that was a thing. Actually, that's something I just thought about as I started talking about this.
Some of that brand split leads to some of the growing pains in this presentation of the show. But anyways.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely some stretching going on, I think. So our second piece of listener mail is actual honest-to-God snail mail. Again, super excited about this. Andy B. In New York, a friend of the show, sent us an original program from WrestleMania 2. Again, I was all the way back in 1986. It's a fantastic piece of memorabilia. We put up a post on our blog site, which is allthewrestlemanias at wordpress.com. So you can enjoy some of the artwork and the memories there. So thanks so much, Andy, for sending that to us. It was a real trip to page through that program.
Yeah, it's a beauty, and I collect programs from various different events, and I am very envious of this one.
It's great. There's some amazing artwork. The Mr. T portrait, in particular, I would almost try to find another copy of this on eBay so I could pull that out and frame it.
Yeah, and the Hulk Hogan portrait, like he's a baby at this point still, and yet they make him look old and wise and grizzled and pained in his portrait. But
well, it's they captured what was on the inside.
Yeah.
So in addition to watching and talking about classic wrestling shows, which we obviously enjoy very much, we also do like to highlight some new wrestling content from time to time. So Rich, I know you had one that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, the most recent Broken Skull Sessions episode on the Peacock with Stone Cold. He had legendary wrestler Ron Simmons on his program, and it is one of the most fascinating, if not the best episode of Broken Skull Sessions. I highly recommend everybody who is listening to this log into their Peacock and load that one up. Ron Simmons really goes into how he felt being pretty much the only black major professional wrestler at the time and for a very long time, and how his career was boosted based off of that, as that like he had talents, but certain visionaries like Dusty Rhodes wanted to make sure that there was better representation in professional wrestling and pushed hard for Ron Simmons to get that belt in 1992. And he talked about how at the time Vader was not into giving up the belt, but eventually Vader did decide to play nice. And so it's a really interesting talk, and it was a really nice tie-in also to our most recent episode where we talked about Ron Simmons on when we discussed black representation in professional wrestling. And so they're really a good partnership there, that we go into the history and then Stone Cold gives you an in-depth interview of one of the major players.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's on my watch list to get to as soon as I have a chance. Right, and when we did that black representation episode, we each sort of named our three favorites. Ron Simmons made my list, my top three, and so I'm really excited to hear what he has to say on there.
Definitely worth the like hour and a half, and if you can, sit down and watch it all at once.
Nice. All right, cool. Thanks for running it down. Hopefully some folks will check that out. All right, that's the viewer mail. That's sort of the preliminaries. I guess it's time to talk WrestleMania 19. So let's run down the details first. Obviously, this is the 19th in our series, March 30th, 2003, from Safeco Field in Seattle, Washington. For one of the few outdoor venues that we've had for WrestleManias. It's been a little while. Attendance for this one was 54,097 with 560,000 pay-per-view buys. The tagline on this one is "Dare to Dream," which kind of makes me laugh. I don't know what we're dreaming about. Dreaming of a coherent card, maybe.
Maybe.
And the runtime on this one is kind of long. Again, 3 hours and 47 minutes. I think we've seen the end of the sub 3 hour WrestleManias, unfortunately, and they're all just going to get progressively, maybe not progressively longer, but they're all going to hover around this time until we actually get to the 2-night split, which happened a few years ago.
I would love to have that time back, and I like a clean, crisp wrestling show where they're going match to match, promo to match, promo to match. It is nice that they're really realizing that WrestleMania is special to the fans, and so they're holding it in big stadiums, trying to make it seem special. It's a little longer than the other pay-per-views, and I mean, as a fan at the time, I didn't mind WrestleMania being almost 4 hours long.
I mean, especially if you're going to drop whatever it was, $40 on a pay-per-view at the time, right? You might as well get your
Right. It better be
money's
$10
worth.
an hour.
Yeah, $10 an hour. That's not bad. All right. Anything you want to say on the background for this show?
Well, there's so there's some interesting stuff in this. This is now they've gotten the F out. This is
Yep.
the WWE now. They're split into two brands. They've split the roster in half. Half of the folks are on SmackDown and the other half are on Raw. And there's very little, if any, crossover. It's practically two different companies, two different shows, two different writing teams, two different general managers, all that good stuff, all that kind of stuff happening. And now they're even two different championships. Which we had just hinted at in the intro. We now have the WWE Championship and we have the World Heavyweight Championship. Now begins the 20 years of trying to keep track of which one's on which show and who has what belt, and the watering down of the brand, in my opinion, because of it.
Yeah, it does sort of lead, like as we said, lead to some stretching and a lot of filler. The other thing that we've got here is two different announce teams. So Taz and Michael Cole are your SmackDown announcers. And of course, Jerry the King Lawler and Jim Ross are our Raw announcers. So that means depending on the match and whether the talent involved is a Raw or SmackDown roster member is who's calling the match. So that kind of takes a little bit of getting used to. This is the first one where we've had these sort of separate announcing teams.
Right, and I love Taz on announcing, and I hate Michael Cole. I still hate Michael
really
Cole
bad.
to this point. He just points out obvious things to you nonstop, and it's really, really annoying. It's like, I'm watching. I see that. Thank you.
We want to know why, right? We don't care.
Right.
Oh, he did a clothesline. Yeah, great. Thanks. Got it.
Yeah, there was also an opening video montage into this WrestleMania, where it's basically 5 minutes of all the superstars sucking up to the concept of WrestleMania, saying that it's the biggest moment of their life, and it's like blah 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 blah. It's like, really, Undertaker, this is like your 11th one now.
Yeah.
Let's calm down.
It's just another Sunday at this point.
Right, and then like Kurt Angle in it
Hmm.
says that this match tonight is the most important one of his life.
Wow.
So he's an Olympic gold medalist, and I'm not him. I can't speak for him, and maybe he did feel that way, but I'm going to have to disagree.
Yeah.
I
Right.
think winning the gold medal at the Olympics, I think it was in Atlanta where he won the gold medal,
Mm-hmm.
it feels like a bigger deal than having a match with Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
So,
Well, again, the perspective, man. We talked a little bit before we hit record that the storylines, kind of the arcs, the feuds going into this is not a whole lot going on that's all that exciting. So we'll kind of just
we're going to forget about it.
we'll just kind of gloss over those when we get to the
Yeah.
individual matches. We'll tell you why they're fighting if it matters. And it
Yeah,
doesn't.
all you need to know is that Brock Lesnar won the Royal Rumble, which was predictable because of how the storylines were going,
Mm-hmm.
and that it deals with shenanigans with Paul Heyman, which actually is still a thing now. So here we are 19 years later, and Paul Heyman is still causing chaos in Brock Lesnar's life.
Thank God for that. He's consistently the best part of the WWE programming that's on these days, especially at SmackDown. He's on these days, and he's always a treat. We do like Paul. All right, are we ready to actually hit the card for this one and talk a little bit about some of these matches?
One other thing is that the show opens up, and the moment the camera goes to the live crowd, there's immediately a sign that says Hogan sucks.
Wow.
That I was like, all right, we're setting the tone early.
Let's jump right into it. So the first one is actually not on the Peacock, so we didn't see it, but it was a dark match with Chief Morley, aka Val Venus, and I didn't remember that particular gimmick for Val Venus, with Lance Storm, with the Dudley Boys versus Rob Van Dam and Kane. The only thing I wrote down for this is what Kane, RVD, the Dudleys all had big matches in their most recent WrestleManias, and here they are sort of demoted to the prelims. So I don't know whose car they hit in the parking lot or what, but
Who'd they piss off?
I don't know, somebody.
According to the Wikipedia, this is another thing that's kind of surprising about the whole production is that this is 2003 and right after the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq, and there's really no patriotic stuff happening, which is unusual for WWE. And then apparently Ashanti sings America the Beautiful in between the dark match and the show actually going on air. And I'm really surprised that they didn't have that as part of the broadcast.
Huh, that's weird. Yeah, I mean, we on our earlier posts, on the first, I don't know, first 15, maybe first 13 WrestleManias, the America the Beautiful or the Star Spangled Banner was always a part of the show. It's still on the Peacock. They really went all out to get big names, Ray Charles and Aretha Franklin. And so it's interesting that that's just kind of just dropped at this point.
Yeah, it's gone. And like this is big time war patriotism, drum up the old boys, tie the yellow ribbon around the old oak tree, and WWE's not having any of it.
The only thing I noted actually about that was during it's either the last match or the next to last match, someone holds up a sign that says "Teabag Saddam." So that's the sparkling political commentary we've come to expect from WWE fans. So anyway, so dark match is over. We've recognized that we're in America, and that's great. The first match of the card is Rey Mysterio versus Matt Hardy with Shannon Moore. It's a singles match for the WWE Cruiserweight Championship.
Yeah, so is Rey Mysterio Daredevil now?
I wrote the exact same thing. He's got like a reddish purple outfit. He looks exactly like Daredevil. He's got the
the
logo.
little ears and
got
the little ears at the top.
Got the logo on the chest in the same place. Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought he was
the
man without fear.
Rey Mysterio, I've read, was actually the very last of the WCW crew to sign with WWE. Part of it was because Vince was unconvinced that Rey's size would work or translate to WWE's style. It's interesting that, like, because of him and a few other folks, WWE now has a cruiserweight belt again, and it's because WCW's cruiserweight division was amazing and a huge draw. It competed evenly with the heavyweight title and stuff, and I think it's because people were starting to like that, like the acrobatics and lucha style wrestling, that like it's not just 300-pound dudes with muscles on muscles pushing at each other. And so it was interesting that that like bit from WCW has rubbed off on WWE now.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad it did. I mean, yeah, we know that Vince has sort of famously been kind of down on smaller guys, and had to be talked into. Quite a few of the people that became big stars. I think Eddie Guerrero probably had some of the same kind of uphill battle
For
with
sure.
getting Vince to think that he was serious because he was a smaller guy, but again, he's freaking amazing. So thank God that he did get there. Yeah, so this is actually our first WrestleMania for Ray. He made his WWE debut just less than a year prior on SmackDown. So, do wonder if because of those colored contacts in his eyes, maybe he really can't see. So he is doing a full Daredevil thing.
Yeah, he's got little bat sonar going or something.
Yeah, he's going full method. Who knows? It's also our first solo match for Matt Hardy, so we've got kind of two, high flyers together here.
Yeah, and he's in his Matt Hardy 2.0 gimmick where it's like little like bad like AOL like screen visuals are popping up on the screen to give you little like information and like fun facts about Matt
Right?
Hardy, and like none of them are interesting and none of them are good.
No,
Um
they haven't aged well either. I read
no.
that kids today aren't going to understand this reference at all. They're
No.
like, "What is this? Was this made on a calculator?"
Right.
Anything to say about the actual match, the actual action?
Rey Mysterio is incredible. He's just flipping around and everything looks so clean and so good, and it was nice to see Rey Mysterio in his prime. Like it's been a long time for seeing that. It was enjoyable to watch, and that. But the match was also the perfect length. It was pretty quick, just because I don't want to watch Matt Hardy that much. And
Yeah,
even at this point, I don't like Matt Hardy solo.
nope.
I also hate Michael Cole again. I'm going to probably say that every single time it's a SmackDown match.
Please do.
But Michael Cole is god awful on announcing.
This was a perfect length. I agree. It's a good start to the show. You got two kind of energetic guys. Ray looks great. I agree. It's he's going on 20 years in the company at this point, and he's still on SmackDown, still doing his thing, and he can still do it. But the difference of sort of the wear and tear and the speed here is remarkable. Matt gets a roll up with an assist from the rope to get the pin and the Cruiserweight Championship belt. And that's the end of that first one. We get an intro for the Catfight Girls, and the less said about that, the better. They get out of a limousine. I'm fast forwarding a little bit because
I had I had a hard time remembering them, and then I was like, oh yeah, so this is where the WWE is taking like one Super Bowl commercial and just like exploding it.
right.
So I'm
Yeah.
pretty certain that's where they're from. Like the Miller Lite Catfight Girls were a Super Bowl
Oh, right,
commercial.
right, right. I do remember that. I totally forgot about that. Ugh. Well, so after that, we're treated. I don't know if that's the right word, to a performance of the song "Rollin'," and then parentheses air raid vehicle because it's important by Limp Bizkit. That's with a Z.
Quote, welcome WWE's favorite band in the whole world, Limp Bizkit.
Please, God, no. The early aughts were a truly dark time for music. I think it probably has something to do with our collective trauma from 9/11. I don't have any other explanation for it.
I
Um,
I will say that they were better than Saliva,
True, very
but
true.
I still not Limp Bizkit guy. This is not my thing. And also they had a break dancer, and I didn't realize that you could break dance to that type of music, but
You most definitely cannot.
they certainly tried.
Well, I will never forgive this particular WrestleMania for making me Google the lyrics to Limp Bizkit songs. That is not something that I wanted for my life, but it happened, and I'm kind of mad about it.
I'm really bad at lyrics, so I just let it blow by me. I just rolling, 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 rolling. Okay.
So the Undertaker comes out on his motorcycle during this song, which I have to admit, as bad as this song and this band suck, it's actually a perfect song for a dude to come out on a motorcycle too. He's got a big flag attached to the back, so he's a patriot. He kind of looks like Rob Halford bringing the motorcycle on stage for Judas Priest shows a little bit, but not as cool.
Jim Ross does point out that Undertaker's nephew is fighting in Afghanistan, so
Oh,
I can understand him wanting to do that. I'm not Afghanistan, but in Iraq. I apologize. So I understand that, but it's also weird that again This is the most patriotic moment that we have in the official broadcast of WrestleMania 19.
Scored by Limp Bizkit.
Yeah, America's band.
America's band. Take that, Saddam. All right. So The Undertaker is wrestling, I guess is the word, the Big Show and A-Train, who is formerly known as Albert, formerly known as Prince Albert, in a handicap match. The Undertaker will have some assistance from Nathan Jones, who is an absolute unit, but I didn't remember him. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Once I looked him up, it turns out that he's also an actor, and he's been in a bunch of stuff as, a giant meaty guy. But the one that I was super excited about is that he is Rictus in Mad Max Fury Road, one of the main baddies' sons. With
We
the
live,
giant,
we die, we live again.
with the machine gun. I had a baby brother. He was perfect in every way. That guy. That's Nathan Jones. So,
God,
holy
I
shit.
love that movie.
Oh my God, it's so
again.
good. So, and the other thing I'll say here at the top is that Albert is furry as fuck. A dude needs to get his shit waxed if he's going to be on national TV.
Yeah, one of the announcers points out that A-Train's got one hairy abdominal area. Quote.
Ew. That's disgusting.
Yeah, I also why do they bother changing his name?
Right.
He's huge and hairy. Fans don't forget that.
Just call him Gorilla Boy and call it a day.
Yeah, and he's not very entertaining. He's very sluggish and kind of blah. And that's how I felt about this match. This may be one of Undertaker's worst matches. It's not his worst, but it's definitely not the best. But I mean, they're all better than Giant Gonzalez at the end. So
at least he has that to fall back on. Yeah, this is not good at all. This is in the Undertaker's unfortunate fake MMA phase, where he's wearing his little fingerless gloves and pretending he knows how to box, and he's trying arm bars on people. It's not a good fit for his
I think
actual
he even
abilities.
has a submission move at this point.
Ugh.
Where he frequently pulls out as his finisher instead of the tombstone or anything like that.
I don't know.
Was this the first handicap match we've seen on WrestleMania?
I think so. I don't remember any others.
Yeah. So this might have been the first handicap match we've seen so far. And I did note that Big Show was actually looking pretty good in this match. That he's looking fit, he's big, but he's not trying to do anything insane. So you don't see him trying to climb the ropes or do suplexes or running around. He's just being a monster, which was nice to see. And at some point during this match, there was a train horn. I don't know what was up with that. I don't know if that was happening outside of the stadium, if Safeco Park is right next to a train yard, or if that was through the PA system. But it was kind of weird that there was a train in the match and that at one point there was a train horn.
Maybe it was queued up for his entrance or something and it went off accidentally. I don't know. I don't have much to say about this. I didn't care about this at all.
No.
Big Show's got his one shoulder Andre singlet. There's the streak, blah, blah, blah. There's a hairy dude. Nathan Jones, Rictus, Mad Max Fury Road. I had a baby brother.
Yeah. He was supposed to be Undertaker's tag partner. But he got jumped in the locker room beforehand because, why not?
Because we can't have nice things.
No. So anyways, obviously the streak continues. Undertaker wins.
All right. Great.
And then JR also then gives a nice little pep talk to the military and says, get this thing done early. It's it's been 20 years now.
Good job, JR. The next up is the women's match. We've got Trish Stratus versus Victoria, who is with Steven Richards, versus Jazz. So it's a triple threat match for the WWE Women's Championship. What did you notice for this one?
I had zero memory of Victoria. I don't know. I guess I just blanked her out. I thought this was another good match. This was another good women's match like we had at the previous one. I thought this was a bang up job. Jazz is mean as hell.
Oh my God, she's scary.
Oh, she is hitting. She is. Ooh, and then Lawler just explains her by saying, quote, raging hormones.
Oh, well, that's great. Thanks, Jerry.
So,
yeah, she's super ripped. I wrote she's kind of scary. She's slapping the shit out of Victoria, and every time she slaps her, she hollers like a banshee. And it scared me. It's on video, and I'm still a little bit scared. She nails somebody, I didn't write down who, with a really impressive power bomb. You can tell that Trish is kind of a step behind the other two. She's the sort of poster girl for the women's championship, and you kind of know that they're going to put her over. But it's actually Victoria and Jazz who are sort of doing all the heavy lifting here and the
Yeah,
actual kind of the bumping and the actual moves and stuff, which I get. I'm sort of okay with it. There's Jazz gets a submission on Trish, but then Steven Richards interferes and saves her. Victoria actually has a couple really impressive moves too. She hits Jazz with a super kick that looked pretty badass, and
right.
then she does a moonsault that it's an intentional miss, but she does this really impressive like flat landing, and I think sometimes when people do that move and they know they're not going to hit it, they maybe sort of brace themselves or kind of start to roll up a little bit, like to cushion the blow up. She just like freaking flat out belly flops on the mat. It was
Yeah.
cool.
Now, if Jade Cargill could learn how to work, I think she could be the next Jazz.
Yeah.
Jazz is on another level. Like, I think she should have been fighting the men. Not just because she's like muscular and like kind of mannish or anything like that. It's more like she knows what she's doing and she knows how to wrestle, and it's very clear and it's very impressive to watch.
Yeah, she was great. I agree. This is actually a pretty decent women's match of the WrestleMania ones we've seen, and they seem to be getting better. Kind of early on when we started watching these old WrestleManias, the women's match, if they happened at all, and a lot of times it didn't even happen. They were sort of an afterthought, kind of a little distraction or whatever, popcorn match sort of thing. But they're actually becoming, a big part of the show, and the talent is steadily improving, I would say.
Before this, they were on the same. They were being treated on the same level as like little person matches,
Yeah.
fun little whatever, like odd freak show kind of stuff. Not
Yeah.
like this is legitimate competition.
A throwaway. So there was a sign in the background during this match that gets blurred out by the peacock. I couldn't. I tried to back it up and see if I could tell what it says, but I
It
couldn't
said
figure it out.
WWF on it.
Did it?
Yeah, so at this point, they've lost the lawsuit to the point to where they need to wipe out anything that says
Oh.
WWF on it.
Oh wow. Get that F out.
Yeah,
All
for
right.
real, they need to. So
They're gonna take all of our money if you guys don't stop writing the F on things.
yeah, so if you actually go back and watch some other stuff from this time period, you'll see that like the turnbuckles are censored and stuff
Yeah.
like that because they have the F on them.
Crazy. So, anything else on the women's championship match?
I thought there was one pretty funny spot where Steven Richards chairs himself. He swings with
Yeah.
the chair and misses, and it hits the rope and comes back and slams himself in the face. And then he eats a stratisfaction, like a huge one. And that one made me giggle, and I really enjoyed that moment in this match a lot.
Yeah, that guy had it coming. So, of course, Trish Stratus takes the win and the championship for that one. We've got a promo with The Rock. He is not over with the crowd at this point. I mean, he's over, obviously, but he's a major heel. He's kind of come back from Hollywood. He's got his big Hollywood attitude. He says, tonight, The Rock could care less about the people. Boo. So many boos during the entire promo. It was great.
Yeah, I felt like his delivery was a little off. Like he's been gone from wrestling now for a while, and so it feels kind of he doesn't feel like he's really in the game here.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a re-entry, some bumps.
But he's still got that pause that like gets the crowd fucking hyped.
Yeah. We've gone on and on about The Rock before, and he's always a treat. All right, so next up we have a tag team match. This is another triple threat. We've got all kinds of stipulations on this particular WrestleMania. This is Team Angle, which is Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin, facing off against Chris Benoit and Rhino versus Los Guerreros, which is Chavo Guerrero Jr. and Eddie Guerrero. It's a match for the WWE Tag Team Championship, which is the Raw Tag Team Championship title. So I think obviously Benoit and Guerrero are the main event here, right? And it's
Oh
sort
my
of
god, yeah,
all the rest
those
of
two,
this,
yeah,
yeah, all the rest of this is just, can these guys get out of the way, please, so that Chris Benoit and
yeah.
Eddie Guerrero can fight?
I mean, this match was entertaining. I really enjoyed this match.
Hmm.
And there was a little bit of a blip in the error in the entrances. I'm not sure if you caught this, but as Rhino was coming down, they actually played the Team Angle video
Oh,
package, and like the announce team started talking about Team Angle, but like Rhino's coming down to the ring, and then
whoops.
suddenly the video like quickly changes over, and the announce team just like stops almost mid sentence of talking about Team Angle to talk about Rhino.
Oh, poor Rhino. He got
I know.
shortchanged.
Yeah.
So the Guerrero's theme song has, of course, the famous line about "We lie and cheat and steal," which is a little bit racist, I think. I don't know, but that was also sort of their gimmick, right? Eddie was like
Yeah.
constantly cheating um, and getting wins by being dishonest.
I
Um,
mean, this is the period of time where faces get over by being heels. So
yeah,
this was a really great match. I'm very happy with how this match went for the most part, and uh, someone needs to tell Chris Benoit that it's not real at this
right.
point because he's fighting people like especially Eddie. He is chopping the shit out of Eddie Guerrero's chest during this match.
So loud, those chops.
Like for them to echo in a baseball stadium,
Yeah,
it's pretty impressive.
yeah. He's man, those guys, they really do go at it. And there's yeah, I wrote there's lots of good action in this one. I don't think we even run through all of it, but there's lots of
No.
really fast and smooth work, lots of quick tags, some really good exchanges. Eddie faces off against Rhino, and Rhino hits him with a power slam. And Rhino gets Shelton. Rhino against Charlie. Rhino versus Eddie. Finally back to Eddie versus Benoit, and that's when the chops really start. There's German suplexes from Benoit on Chavo Guerrero Jr. that look really good. He hits him like
Yeah.
4 times in a row with that thing. I'm like, please stop! You're going to break his neck.
Yeah, and there's also this moment where Eddie's coming off the ropes at Benoit, and Benoit springs him up into the air, like he's just going to let him like pancake down. But as Eddie's coming down, Benoit catches his arm and puts him in an arm bar, and they land together in the arm bar.
Jesus.
It's an amazing little impressive spot. It just gives you chills. Like it's the little things that really like made Benoit and Eddie Guerrero so great, and this is one of them.
Yeah, they worked really well together. I would highly recommend if you're going to watch any highlights from this particular WrestleMania. That's one I would put on your list for sure.
This is one of the better tag matches in WrestleMania history,
Wow.
in my opinion.
So Shelton for Team Angle gets the win, and they keep the belts. Um, this maybe didn't need to be a 3-way match. I don't know. Maybe it could have gone a different approach, but I'm really glad it was here.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it a bit of a circus, which is kind of fun. But this is also probably a triple threat match, just because WWE is so flush with talent at this point. They need to do something with all of them.
Right. So I noted that the show is really moving along here.
Yeah,
These first 4 matches are less than 10 minutes each, and they average just under 8 minutes apiece. And then the last 5 matches that we're about to talk average around 20 minutes each. So it's a real shift in pace of the show, and it's interesting sort of watching it. And I appreciate actually the quick start. It's a way to kind of get people hyped, get them into the show, and then you get them to sort of settle down for these kind of longer matches. So.
yeah, and that match, after all of that like fast pacedness, I needed to stop for a moment to get some mozzarella sticks to get myself back together.
You needed a breather. So, well, you also had a chance to take a breather because the Catfight Girls are back
Uh,
and they're debating whether Mr. McMahon or Hulk Hogan is more responsible for creating WrestleMania. I Does anybody care? Like, don't we just can we just sort of agree that they did it together? Like, a promoter can't do it without a talent. Talent can't do it without a promoter, right?
right. Right. We've gone from having Muhammad Ali and Liberace on WrestleMania to these cat fighting women that were a minor blip on the pop culture radar that was a real struggle to even remember who the hell they are.
Right.
At that point in time, it was a struggle to remember who they were. Um, WrestleMania is slipping a little bit.
Yeah, this is 2 months away, or 2 months after the Super Bowl. So that's a lifetime in
I
terms of
mean,
forgetting commercials.
it's better than 3 years after the OJ trial, but
Well,
let's.
so the Cafe Girls are going to settle it in the ring or maybe in bed. They're not clear. Um, I don't care. When they go back to the arena, though, actually, there's a sign alert that says that was dumb, which I totally agree.
Someone's on the fly just making signs. It's great.
Right. I always thought about that actually. Can you take like blank poster board and a big ass marker, and then just as things come up, like,
I'm sure you could probably just take a marker board with you. Just
yeah,
slip a
well, that's a
marker
good
board
idea.
in with you.
Live commentary on the signs.
Sitting there with a dry erase board.
This will be a goal for the next AEW show we go to. So Shawn Michaels versus Chris Jericho is up next. There's a video package of their feud. Jericho's facial hair is super sketchy on the video package. He's got this like weird chin beard thing. He looks like super Amish. I don't know what was going on with him at that time. I really hate Shawn Michaels still, and so I'm not particularly excited to see him here. But this match actually turns out to be pretty good.
It was a little too long, in my opinion, to me, but it was a good match. Shawn Michaels is a good storyteller in the ring, as much as we kind of don't like him outside of the ring. He is a good storyteller in the ring.
Could we also call this a handicap match because Shawn Michaels is performing here without cocaine?
It's possible. I mean, he is sober at this point. He's back from retirement. I guess Jericho is a big enough tease to him
Yeah.
to get him to come out of retirement. And I noted that they worked a very traditional opening for a good part of this match. They were just like locking up, headlocks, arm bars, stuff like that, hip tosses.
Shawn Michaels sort of calms down some of his hysterics, some of his, kind of flipping. He does his skin the cat thing over the top rope, which what's fine. I agree. There's a very much more sort of grounded, kind of good pace. Chris starts working on Shawn's back at one point, and then that's kind of the big thing that they're selling. And of course, the announcers are going on and on about Shawn's back injuries and how it led to his retirement, and et cetera, et cetera. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, and they were both working a little stiff in this match. There was a really stiff baseball slide into Jericho. There was a really rough like face buster on the from the
Oof.
top rope.
Yeah,
That was harsh.
I saw that one too.
I found the match entertaining, but there just isn't much to talk about it. It's kind of like how this whole pay-per-view is, that they're
Yeah.
like, it was entertaining, but there's just not much, I don't know, to really break down and to talk about. These guys had a pretty decent match. I feel that Chris Jericho's facials and vocals at this point are oversold. Like he's overly dramatic, in my opinion, at
Yeah.
least.
He can be a little cartoony.
Yeah, I just like, I don't know if it's also just like the tone of his voice, or it's like but it's, I don't know what it is. It's too much for me.
Yeah, he does. He's a screamer for sure. That's why he's so terrible in commentary now on AEW. He just screams, and you don't have to do that. Listen to Jim Ross. He doesn't scream.
Yeah.
He talks in an announcery voice, but it's not screaming. Nobody. You can't keep that up. You tire people out when you do that shit.
Yeah, go watch some Jake the Snake promos.
Yeah, seriously.
Learn about how to talk soft.
So I wrote two good signs here. So first of all, there's lots of ass clown signs, which is one of Jericho's favorite insults. So I appreciated the ass clown signs. That was good. And then there's another one where somebody holds up a sign that says, "Where are my pants?" Which is an excellent question. And
he was sitting next to "You are butt."
I like that sign too. And I mean, that guy's right. I am butt.
For some reason, it's like okay when Ric Flair and Hogan do the same things, but for some reason, I don't know if it's just because I didn't find Shawn Michaels ever that enthralling, except for in a ladder match with Razor Ramon.
Yeah.
That when him having all these same spots, it just doesn't feel right.
It's annoying, right?
Yeah.
It's like when someone you like does something and you're okay with it, and then someone that you just can't stand does the exact same thing. You're like, God, it's so annoying.
Yeah, it's like I don't like it because it's you doing it, not because I don't like it being done.
It's just your face. So Jericho puts the walls of Jericho on Shawn a couple different times during this ring. Actually, I had a question. So between this match and his many, many matches with Bret Hart, how many times do you think Shawn has been put in a sharpshooter or some version thereof? Like more than 200? Like,
oh, probably.
Yeah.
He probably can't even like straighten his knees out straight anymore because of how many times he's had to do it.
He's been sharpshooted to death. Well, so there was a part I thought we were headed towards a double countout, which is, as we know, a great WrestleMania tradition. They had the walls of Jericho going outside the ring, but they hopped back in the ring. I was a little disappointed it didn't end that way.
Shawn actually misses the chin music kick, and it gets reversed into the walls of Jericho.
Yeah,
which is exciting. Also, for the announcer at AEW, the standing Boston Crab that Jericho does is called the Walls of Jericho. It is not the Lion Tamer. Please learn Chris Jericho's moves. It's pretty easy to know that, like,
he has like three moves with names. They're pretty
yeah,
easy to remember. Well, to be fair, Excalibur. Are we allowed to just say it's
it's
Excalibur?
just Excalibur.
Also terrible. He is too busy remembering the names of all those bullshit Japanese moves that he loves so much. So he can't. How could you expect him to remember the three moves of one of their major talents there?
I think he either just makes up the move names or he heard them called that once and he has like a photographic memory and he just starts using like the slang and like slapstick like joke names that people will give things these moves and just
Yeah.
starts using it as it's the legit name.
The,
Um,
oh, that was the Colorado teabag. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so Sean does some sort of reversal to get the win. Jericho looks like he's almost crying at the end. He goes and hugs Sean. They sort of have this nice moment, but then of course he nutshots Sean because he's a dick. Um, they're both dicks. I think they deserve each other, honestly.
Yeah, they should move in together. They're like the exact opposites of like Greg Valentine and Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Like they should also live together.
Yeah, they could be neighbors, and then it would be a show about the four of them. Oh man, get my agent on the phone. We need to write
That's a
this
good
up.
buddy comedy.
All right, so we survived that. Um, we get treated to some more Limp Bizkit WWE theme song for this WrestleMania. Crack Addict.
There's kids watching this. Like
Well,
this
see,
is for a younger audience.
here's the trick though, Rich. You think the song from the name is about the drug rock cocaine, but actually he says, "I'm addicted to cracking skulls when punks start static." So that's the crack that he's talking about. It's actually not drugs; it's violence.
Dare didn't work. I'm just gonna say it. And this is the sign that Dare didn't work.
It was a waste of taxpayer money. So this song goes on for freaking ever. I thought maybe I had fallen into a coma and it was like still going on. I don't know. Let's just keep going. In case that wasn't bad enough,
It's
now
another
we
waste of taxpayer money right here.
yeah we have to look at Jonathan Coachman. Okay, not a good start. He's introducing the Miller Lite Catfight Girls, who are going to have a pillow fight on a giant bed slash couch to settle, I think, definitively the issue of whether Hulk Hogan or Vince McMahon is more responsible for Hulkamania and the success of professional wrestling in general in the 80s when these girls probably weren't alive. Um, so it's the Catfight Girls and then Stacy Keibler, who we talked about last time.
I know her.
You do?
I don't really know her, but I met her.
Yeah. That's a good story. You should watch the episode on WrestleMania 18 if you want to hear the whole story. And then Tori comes out to make it a fatal four-way because she says the only thing you're missing here is a Playboy cover girl. So I don't know. They kind of like tear each other's clothes off and hit each other with pillows and spank each other's asses. Coach sort of narrates from the side. I don't know.
This is a WrestleMania low point.
Yeah,
This
for
is
sure.
this is the lowest point that WrestleMania has gotten to that we've watched at this point. It I I literally wrote I have no words.
It's pretty bad.
And that I have to tell you that I'm disqualifying this as a match. You cannot use this as your worst or best match.
Okay.
You can't use it as your oh shit moment. You
Oh.
can't use it for anything except for to lower the score of the overall rating of this WrestleMania.
0 stars.
0.0.
Coach gets pantsed at the end and pinned. And then they play ZZ Top's Legs in maybe the world's most obvious musical choice to play the girls off.
I think that was Stacy Keibler's theme at the time. So,
She has long legs. I get it.
We've got these four like very attractive women, and the finish is we got to look at Jonathan Coachman's ass.
Hard pass. All right, so next up in the card is Triple H with Ric Flair versus Booker T for the World Heavyweight Championship. Super excited about this one. It might even make me enjoy Triple H. I don't know. We'll see.
I would advise anybody that's going to watch this match to mute it if you don't want to hear the racist dog whistles that Jerry Lawler is dropping through the entire match.
It's really bad.
I wrote down a couple of the notables here. That Booker T has Johnny Cochran on speed dial. Don't
Mm,
judge a crook by his lawyer. Booker T should have known he'd never amount to anything when he was born on a pool table.
yikes.
The family portrait is a courtroom sketch.
Jesus Christ, Jerry.
Maybe he's having a flashback to those days behind bars.
I wrote we went to the mall yesterday and he tried to pay for everything in cigarettes. It's very clever.
Yeah.
Very clever.
So it's 2003 and the WWE is still relying on racist dog whistles for their heel color commentary.
Yeah, it's gross.
I don't understand it. It's not necessary.
There's I thought it was interesting actually that the video package before this one is actually a bit of a shoot. It's Booker T talking about his robbery conviction, and then of course parlaying that into the discussion of the feud between him and Triple H. But like the stuff about his robbery conviction is real, and if you watch the biography on him or read anything about him, that's part of his story, and he's okay with it. He's open about it. But I just thought it was interesting that to see it kind of worked into the storyline here.
Yeah, this is the change from the Attitude Era to where they're pushing even more towards full realism. Many of the guys still aren't fighting under their real names. It's still their backgrounds are real, and it's partially just because at this point WWE is also dealing with the fact that the internet's a thing, and
Right.
the rumor mills are pumping out everything to like writers are talking to people backstage, and then suddenly what the writer said about who's going to win the match at WrestleMania and stuff like that is showing up on the internet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you can't pretend that somebody's actually a garbage man anymore, You can't. So
right.
you have to acknowledge that, yes, this is a real person, that he's going by a stage name. He's in the case of Triple H, he's actually married to the boss's daughter, and kind of that becomes much more part of the story just because, like you said, it's way easier for people to find that stuff out these days.
Thought that this match was pretty good. I'm upset again that like it's Booker T. He is a 4-time world champion in WCW. He actually held this belt again in WWF for a little bit, briefly. And it's mid-card.
Yeah.
So like this is where it becomes troublesome that they have 2 title belts. Like they put one of them. This is a main event caliber match. This is a big time wrestling match, and it's in the middle of the card. And like Hogan versus McMahon is later in the card than this match.
Right. The slap fight between 2 60-year-old guys. I'm sorry, 50-year-old guys.
Right. And
it's higher billing.
The lead into this match is the cat fight. Like there's
that's bad.
It's just like I feel like there's no respect for them, for this, especially, and it feels like it's slanted against Booker T again.
Yeah, I would agree. It's kind of unfortunate. But all that aside, we talked about last time how much we love freaking watching Booker T work. His shit is clean. He really lays it in. He's got amazing facials. I really like this match. I noticed the vocalizations he does sort of with each of his moves that kind of like bring up the energy level. He really seems, it seems like he's having a honest to God fight with somebody. He does some really tough looking chops on this one. They sound like gunshots. He does this like twisting / flying clothesline elbow move that looks really good. Really kind of looks like you could legitimately hurt somebody with it.
Booker T actually is finally over with the crowd too, and he gets a huge pop when he comes out, which is much different than the last WrestleMania that we watched where it was silent when he came out.
Yeah.
He does this front flip leg drop on the Triple H near the end of the match that triggers a holy shit chant from the crowd.
Yeah, that's great.
You normally don't get a holy shit chant just for doing something in the ring. Normally it's like somebody went through a table or something. But I mean, that's how much of attention that Booker T can draw, and like the kinds of things he will do.
Yeah, no, that move was great. He's super athletic, and like I said, we really enjoy watching him work. The kind of storyline they're selling in this one is, Flair sort of intervenes and attacks Booker and puts his knee into the metal steps outside the ring. So, of course, his leg is injured and Triple H goes to work on the leg. Triple H puts the Indian Deathlock on Booker. JR goes on and on about it and how he hasn't seen anyone use it in 10 years. Ric Flair must have taught it to him because clearly nobody has ever seen or done the Indian Deathlock.
Triple H also does a massive spine buster in this match, and I've always liked Triple H's spine buster slam.
Yeah,
he always makes it look so good. He's probably up there with like Arn Anderson and The Rock in their quality of spine busters. And JR really does some amazing announcing in this match. He references Harley Race and Arn Anderson and Ric Flair, pointing out like these WCW veterans and NWA champions, and that really starts selling the legacy of the belt that Triple H is defending, because that's what belt this is that this was the WCW belt and the and prior to that the NWA belt,
the big gold belt. They bumped the ref at one point, but it doesn't really amount to anything. And I kind of wonder if it wasn't accidental. Booker actually kind of like turns around and looks like he's almost like apologizing or checking on the ref, like, "Oh, are you okay? You okay?" I don't know if that was supposed to be a ref bump, but
I'm sure it's a work.
Yeah,
it's always a work.
Yeah, that's true. But it doesn't affect anything within the match, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, there was a moment where you can hear Ric Flair turn to a fan off camera and say, "Shut up, damn it." Like, I don't know if a fan was just giving him too much shit or something, but that was...
Oh, he's sensitive.
It's a bit of a dirty finish, and Triple H maintains the belt. And as we had discussed prior to recording this, that I normally don't disagree with where they're going with things. I did not like Triple H keeping the belt at this point.
I think if you have a talent like Booker T, you put that belt on him, man, and let him defend it against anybody that wants to come for it, And honestly, this sort of feels like Triple H continuing to get the push because of his relationship with the McMahons. Nothing against him or to denigrate his ability, but like I agree. That wasn't the right finish here. It is 57-year-old Vince McMahon.
No chance!
In a street fight against...
No chance in hell! Oh, God, McMahon.
Please no. In a street fight against 49-year-old Hulk Hogan. Hawk must retire if he loses. Maybe Hawk should just retire anyway because he's 49. I don't know. There's another sort of shoot video package here, like with Booker, where they're kind of drawing from real life. That I thought was kind of interesting. They're talking about the steroids trial and Hogan testifying against Vince. There's some news footage from the time. The storyline they're pushing here is that Vince has never gotten over it. He was betrayed by Hogan, his best friend and most promising prospect.
At no point in time were there ever a chance that they were best friends.
No. No. But he says in his promo that he created Hulkamania, and by God, at WrestleMania, he's going to kill it. So, you be warned. Yeah.
Please do.
It's over. I actually kind of liked Hogan's response promo. He says, "You better start..." He gives his famous, his own famous script, but he twists it a little bit. He says, "You better start training. You better start eating your vitamins, and you better start saying your damn prayers."
So, yeah, that was a hot promo that Hogan laid in. That was a good twist.
Yeah. Also, hearing Hulk Hogan swear is kind of like hearing your dad swear when you were like really young. You're like, "Oh man, he's not supposed to talk like that."
No.
So. Yeah, I like that a lot. There's some more recaps of Vince attacking Hogan with a chair and a pen, and Hogan bleeding all over the place, and so clearly there's bad blood. We're gonna get into it. That's why this has to be a street fight.
The real reason why this has to be a street fight is because Vince McMahon doesn't know how to wrestle, and Hogan can barely wrestle anymore. So they need to have a reason just to hit each other and not do moves. That's the real reason.
I don't believe you.
And to dropping to go with them getting more into the realistic storylines, They introduced Hogan as from Tampa Bay, Florida now
Right.
in this match instead of from Venice Beach.
Yeah, he's no longer Hollywood Hulk Hogan. He's back in his red and yellow. The fans are into it for the most part. You saw the Hogan sucks earlier, but somebody has a sign that Hawk actually takes from a fan that says Vince still sucks. So maybe a bit of a divide in the crowd.
Well, they both really suck.
That's true.
Hogan also doesn't use Rick Derringer's Real American, which I was sad about.
Yeah. I don't know when that happened though. Was that when he became Hollywood Hogan? Did he switch music?
I don't think he used it in WCW at all.
Okay.
Well, he used American Made. It's
Oh,
like what is
okay.
Real Made.
Oh yeah, American Made. Released 1999.
Yeah.
Genre, country music. Is that true?
I wouldn't call that country.
So they start off with a slap fight. Hogan gets him with a spear, which I thought was kind of funny. And then there's some weak ass slap punches while Vince is down. The announcers use the phrase ground and pound. So clearly they're trying to make it seem like it's, a real fight, sort of MMA vocabulary, but it really just looks like two old guys having a slap fight over the free coffee at McDonald's or something. I noted here that this match is over 20 minutes long. We're in for it.
Yeah. Is this 20 minutes of two old guys punching each other, doing stupid shit that they shouldn't do? Vince definitely hits an artery at some point because, good God, he's bleeding.
Sweet Jesus. Yeah.
God.
Hogan gets in with a chair, and then he grabs the chair and kind of walks around with it and makes a big show. And that, of course, gives Vince a chance to blade himself while our attention is distracted. But when he gets up, he is bleeding like crazy.
I mean, Vince ate that chair. Like, He had no hands up or anything. Like, I couldn't, like, God, Vince, like, you shouldn't do that.
No, nobody should do that. Only Ken Shamrock is allowed to eat chairs to the face like that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some mildly entertaining spots here. Vince puts Hogan on the Spanish announcer's table because, of course, and then climbs up a ladder and drops a leg drop on him. I didn't see what happened, but when Hugo, the one Spanish announcer, gets up after that, he is also bleeding.
Yeah. He got colored the hard way. Something from the table hit him.
Yeah, I felt bad, man. He didn't sign up for that shit. Vince gets a pipe, but gets nut-shotted by Hogan, and then we got a surprise guest appearance.
Yeah, I put in all caps, "Oh, fuck, it's Piper."
Yeah, Roddy Piper shows up in his kilt. He's looking pretty puffy and pale and terrible, but he gets a great pop from the crowd. They're super into it.
Yeah, and he's also still a heel piece of shit, which is amazing.
Totally.
Everybody is like, "Oh, it's Piper. He's gonna help Hogan." No, you dumb shit. He hates Hogan.
They've always hated each other.
Right?
Don't you remember?
Oh, sorry. None of you were born.
Yeah, we just talked about this on the Wrestling Classic episode. So, does he call Vince Jr. at one point when he's like yelling at him?
Yeah, I think so.
That was great. Well, so I've heard that Vince really doesn't like being referred to as Vince Jr., right? Because he has a different middle initial and kind of makes a big deal out of it. So for him to call his former, current, whatever boss Jr. on live TV was great.
I know how he feels. I do the same thing. My dad and I have different middle names, so I am not a junior. Don't fucking call me a junior.
So, but if we ever have heat, in the ring, I'll know how to get to you.
Yeah, because that's going to happen.
Well, I don't know. You will read about us in the newspaper as two overweight middle-aged men having simultaneous heart attacks in a makeshift wrestling ring.
Two idiots and Bowie tonight.
We're killed today. So, yeah, Piper lays the pipe. I shouldn't say that. Piper nails Hogan with a pipe and then does like a kiss my ass gesture, hikes up his kilt and slaps his ass. Then, of course, it's time for the Hawk Up. Vince gets the big leg on Hogan, but Hogan has had enough by this point, so he's hawking up. He's pointing, he's wagging his finger. The crowd is losing its fucking mind. He's bleeding all over the place. They're both bleeding all over the place. There's the leg drop, 2 leg drops, and then it's all over.
Hogan doesn't need to be in a match like this.
No, he really doesn't.
This isn't what made Hogan great. This isn't what makes everybody love Hulk Hogan or his legacy.
Yeah.
Really, that this match should have been a straight match, and then just gone through a couple spots that would remind the crowd of famous Hogan matches, such as Hogan versus Warrior or Hogan versus Andre, and then big boot leg drop.
Wrap it up.
Hogan goes home, and McMahon like cowers away. Like if
Yeah.
that's what they're going to do, like this match should not have been more than like 7 minutes long.
Yeah. This is actually a really interesting contrast to the one that we just saw with him and The Rock at WrestleMania 18, right? Where
Right.
they went a different direction from the typical Hogan match and told a different story, but it was also sort of in character and in continuity with what you know about Hulk Hogan, right? Hulk Hogan's not the Street Fighter guy. Roddy Piper is the Street Fighter guy. So to have him kind of do this thing,
Yeah.
it's like asking the oboe player to, play the concerto on the trumpet or something. It's
Right.
he's talented at doing this other thing, but it's not that, right? So
Right. So like I don't know if they're going for like this is Hogan the man, not Hogan the character. But I mean if they're going to do that, then they need to be like this is Terry Bollea from Tampa,
Right.
Florida coming to fight Vince McMahon.
Right. And he needs to come down in t-shirt and jeans the way Vince did, right? Not in his
Right.
feathers and sunglasses and all that stuff.
And Roddy Piper needs to not interfere because like
Yeah.
that's a work, So
Right.
So if they want to do like a full shoot angle, then that's what they do. That's what they should have done, but they didn't. So it's just like kind of like Hogan has possibly the best Hulk Hogan WrestleMania match ever at WrestleMania 18, and then has perhaps his worst at WrestleMania 19.
And then it's his last WrestleMania match too. So
Right. Which is a shame. He should have gone out after losing to The Rock, gone out on his shield on that one, and that would have been amazing.
Yeah,
But
I agree. This was a kind of
Hogan
waste
ego.
of his
ego.
talents and a waste of the genuine goodwill I think that he has with the fans. So
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't think that one's going to make our best match list, unfortunately. Next up, though, is The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, which on paper sounds exciting, right? This is our third Rock versus Stone Cold match for WrestleMania, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah, including some really good ones. There was a falls count anywhere or no disqualifications or whatever it was, and we've seen these two go to war. So this will be the third time. Again, the sort of storyline here is The Rock is back from Hollywood. He's the new Hollywood Hogan. He's been in some movies. He hanging out with famous people. So has he gotten soft? Can he still do it? Can he still hang with the real tough sons of bitches of the WWE like Stone Cold? So I guess we're about to find out.
Yeah, so like the whole setup to this match is that Stone Cold basically won a viewer's choice award practically of like Stone Cold is everybody's favorite WWE wrestler. And that pissed The Rock off. But what does The Rock expect? He's been gone. He's not there. He's not on TV.
He's not a wrestler. Yeah.
But Stone Cold also has been gone for a while. Stone Cold quit.
I get really mad when my former job refuses to name me Employee of the Month.
Yeah.
I'm like, you guys. And then I go back and fight the person who did get Employee of the Month.
Right. This is like Stone Cold's return after he walked out because Vince wanted him to put over Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
And Stone Cold was like, well, that makes no damn sense, and went home. And The Rock references it, that The Rock in his promo that like Stone Cold took his ball and went home and blah, 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 blah. But
his horse was sick. Oh, that's
his horse was sick.
Sorry. Yeah. So Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross keep talking about, they keep saying this is WrestleMania over and over and over again. I guess to remind us that this is definitely not a movie. And this is real life. I don't know, actually. I guess the idea is that you can't movie punch Stone Cold Steve Austin because Steve Austin's gonna knuckleball you right in the forehead.
This match, it just didn't have for me, it didn't have the same pop and energy as their previous encounters. The Rock looks like he's a step slower. Stone Cold is looking a step slower. Stone Cold's been through some shit, and this is his last professional match.
He's got like 20 pounds of knee braces on too. So he's
yeah.
I feel the same way, honestly. I feel like the hype is there, the personalities are there. We love these guys. I love to see them do whatever they want to do, honestly. But like this is, in terms of the actual ring work, it's kind of like, all right. I think the most interesting, moving part for me is at the very end. The Rock gets 3 rock bottoms on him, and he finally puts away Austin, and he kind of sits over top of him, and you can see that he's talking to him there at the end. And the Rock has talked about this in some interviews, and I think Stone Cold has as well. He's basically, sort of thanking him for all the, the opportunities and the chance to work together and for the ride that they've been on together. So for me, that was really sort of a moving moment, and he kind of like touches Austin's chest as he gets up, kind of like, thanks, buddy. I thought that part was really nice, actually.
As a human,
Yeah.
I like that. As a
Yeah.
wrestling fan, I hated it because The Rock was
totes.
breaking kayfabe, and then that's not what I like.
Yeah.
I didn't like seeing that. Like, it wasn't like they were both faces and they're shaking hands before the start of the match or something like that, where they could get away with, checking on, like,
Yeah.
fake checking on him at the end of the match or something like that. That's not what was happening. It was The Rock breaking character and stuff, and so I didn't like that. But I thought it was interesting actually at the beginning of the match that Austin goes for the stunner immediately, like trying to just like, let's just get this over with and like move on with life. But like The Rock gets out of it, and then like Austin realizes, okay, well, I'm going to have to whip his ass.
Right. One stunner and send this jabroni back to Hollywood.
Right. And I thought actually at this point, Austin looks in better shape than The Rock. Austin looks like he's put on about 30 pounds of muscle or something. And The Rock actually looks like he's lost some definition. The match was, the ref was just letting him do stuff. And this was not like a no rules match, right? Like there was rules, but
should have been.
They're like just outside of the ring forever, and they were doing horrible things to each other out there. And it's like, what's happening? Like, why isn't the ref counting? Why is the ref just following them? Why is, like, I guess they're just working loose with the rules in this match.
I don't know. It's a good question. Like we've said with other things, it works better almost if they have a clean match, right? If they kind of keep it to the ring, follow the rules, sort of do the wrestling thing. This is not a no disqualification slugfest like they had before. I like when The Rock put Austin's skull vest on at one point. That was a great heel move.
That was a good moment.
The Rock goes to work on the legs, which is obviously bad because, again, Austin looks like the freaking Bionic Man with all those knee braces. So,
he struggles with a sharpshooter on him.
He could even try to bend all that plastic and metal and shit that's on his knees.
Yeah, and like that also sent the announce team referring back to Stone Cold and Bret Hart again. So like it felt like kind of like a tired trope almost at this point of like The Rock putting the sharpshooter on Stone Cold
again.
At
least he didn't lose 3 quarts of blood this time. So
no. And like The Rock does his spine buster, but it didn't seem as clean or as good as it used to be. And I don't know if that was Stone Cold's fault or if The Rock is his ring rust. I also noted that this match had too many false finishes for my taste. It was just like they're like superheroes like landing devastating finishers on each other, but they're not working.
Yeah, it drags a little bit. It goes on nearly 18 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else you want to say about this. I had a question. How often do you think Steve and Dwayne talk these days? So they seem to have a good relationship. Seems to be lots of mutual respect. Do you think they like text? And what do you think that looks like?
I actually don't think they talk at all. No, I'd imagine at this point, like if they were good enough friends, The Rock would have enough sway to like get Stone Cold into something.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, I think if they were good enough friends, like Stone Cold would have shown up on an episode of Ballers or something.
Although from what I've heard, from on his various interviews and stuff, Austin didn't really like the movie, his time in the movie business. He sort of like did a bunch of them in kind of a quick stretch, moved out to LA. He's like, I'm going to make this my thing. But it sounds like he didn't really dig it. It didn't help that most of the movies were like not great.
He didn't have someone really like filtering the material for him.
Some of it's pretty bad. Moving on. Last match, main event, the one that's going to save this entire WrestleMania. Maybe we're going to save all of humanity. It's Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle for the WWE Championship. This is Prime Lesnar versus Prime Angle. You've got 2 actual athletes and shooters here. They're in peak physical condition. They're ready to get it on. I'm kind of hyped, honestly.
Yeah, this match was something to really look forward to back in the day. I didn't like Kurt Angle back in the day. I didn't really even like appreciate him. Nowadays, like I'm wishing I probably should go back and rewatch his stuff, because the stuff that he brought to the ring, the legitimacy that he brought to the ring, had been sorely missing
Yeah,
for a
he's really
long
damn good,
time.
and I think
Um,
it's been actually kind of a delight to catch some of this peak angle work on these WrestleManias and some of the other stuff we've been watching. So, highly recommend.
and I would argue that we haven't seen someone work with Brock this well since.
No, and I think what makes them really work together is, like I said, they are two actual, athletes and shooters, and they can sort of play off of that. Honestly, I think you said when you were watching this, it looked like they kind of some of this stuff is actually a shoot, and they come out of it into sort of worked, the next moves or whatever. But they who gets on top and who comes out of an exchange is actually maybe shoot.
Like, it had a lot of like moments like the Kurt Angle Chris Benoit match, where like it felt like they were like really shooting on each other, and then they would improvise off of whoever came out on top.
There's some great stuff here. There's a lot of really back and forth. There's some really cool reversals. There's an F5 attempt that gets reversed into an ankle lock, I guess. Their Angle keeps going back to that ankle lock, which I think is such a good move for him. Honestly, it lets the camera get right in the face of his opponent, where they can sell like crazy, and then he can crank it down and do his own facials and stuff. There's one where he has it on Lesnar, and Lesnar sort of like bodily drags Angle to grab the ropes. Which is really cool.
There's a lot of amazing suplexes and feats of strength in this match with each other. There's some amazing German suplexes. Angle does this release German suplex on Brock that leads to Brock taking a front bump. He completely flips him in the air. That's pretty spectacular. Brock Lesnar is a huge man. And Brock like reverses an angle slam into a weird roll-up pin. Yeah, that was like the first false finish in this match isn't until 15 minutes in. These guys put on a hell of a show.
Actually, I kind of stopped taking notes on sort of the back and forth and all the particular moves, except for one, near the end, and we'll talk about here in a second.
Yeah.
But it is 21 minutes long, but it could have been another 10 minutes easily. I think, I could have watched these guys all day.
Taz points out too that, and I agree with him, that they keep this match in the ring the entire time, pretty much. They are doing moves, they are working each other, and they're keeping it straight and legitimate the entire time, which is really refreshing compared to the Hogan McMahon match, or even the Rock and Stone Cold, where they're like working dirty, but the ref isn't doing anything.
And it's absolutely the right
it.
move to keep this inside the ring. I mean, it would be supremely stupid to take this out and start throwing chairs at people or whatever. And if you have this kind of talent, you have these sort of actual skills. Let them have an honest to God wrestling match in the ring.
This match also gives the top reason why I hate Michael Cole, and this is a quote from Michael Cole during this match.
All right, let's hear it.
I don't want to harp on it, but these two are the most decorated athletes in the WWE. That was the 5th time he had said it.
Well, but he doesn't want to harp on it, though.
But he doesn't want to harp on it. I don't know if he thinks that means he legitimately gets a real harp out and plays the harp while saying it.
He doesn't really understand figures of speech.
But you're harping on it, Michael Cole. You're harping on it.
It's too late.
At this point in time, too, when I was watching this in 2003, I really loved Brock Lesnar. He was my favorite guy at this time, and I still kind of do actually love Brock Lesnar. But the real pity is that no one in WWE really can shoot wrestle with him like Kurt Angle does. I feel like that's part of the reason why Brock had like the falling out from wrestling. I know that he didn't like the traveling and the grueling schedule and stuff, to the point where they gave him like a private jet and stuff. So that he could get around a bit better. But I feel like he also wanted to go try MMA because he's going to find other people that can actually shoot with him.
Right. So he can actually work with.
Kurt Angle, pretty much in WWE, is the only one at this time that can.
Yeah, and we've talked a little bit before about Bobby Lashley, and sort of on the current roster, who's probably the only guy who can sort of match up with him that way now. But he's also like massive enough that it's going to be like the two giants colliding sort of thing, not right. the shooting back and forth. So
right, like Brock Lesnar is kind of like a throwback to the days of Bob Backlund and the Iron Sheik being real legitimate wrestlers and going into the professional wrestling business.
Yeah. So unfortunately, there's kind of a rough ending to this one. Lesnar sort of famously gets up on the top ropes and goes for this shooting star splash thing and lands directly on his fucking head. He manages to get Angle up into one more F5 to get the win, but he looks really out of it. I think I don't remember exactly what, if he was actually concussed or he broke anything there, but it's a rough
Yeah,
botch.
I think he just ended up with a neck stinger. But this is pretty much the biggest botch in WrestleMania history that happens at the end of the show, and it's kind of fitting to how the show was going. That like the show doesn't have much entertainment value, in my opinion, to it, and then suddenly you get to a real match, and they're having a hell of a match for the ages,
Mm-hmm.
and then Brock lands on his head, and they
Yeah.
have to do a weird finish to try and get out of it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and you can tell they're sort of like, well, time to wrap it up. That was not good.
Right.
So he kind of is very looking very dazed, kind of crawls over and finishes it up. So,
I think the Shooting Star Press was supposed to be the finish to the match,
no,
and
but not like that.
but it couldn't after that.
Yeah.
And then again, this is where I don't like Michael Cole again. Michael Cole says Angle rolled away, and that's why Brock missed. And it's like, Angle didn't move.
No.
It's very clear that Angle didn't move. Angle was just too far away,
Mm-hmm.
and Brock fell short and landed on his head. That's what happened. If Angle had been 2 feet closer to the corner, Brock would have landed it. And I'm not saying that it's Angle's fault. I'm just saying, Michael Cole, stop gaslighting me.
I saw what I saw.
I saw Kurt Angle laying there and Brock Lesnar landing on his head, not because Angle moved.
And and Brock Lesnar had done this move before. This wasn't like, oh, he's just wilding out at WrestleMania because it's the big time. He had done this move many times, and he said, I watched, it was the Ruthless Aggression documentary, I think, and he talks about it at length. He said, I just didn't get it. I just didn't get the right push off, or Angle was a little too far away. Shit happens, right? Like, so it's unfortunate. I just saw Lance Archer do something very similar.
Right. Lance Archer does pretty much the exact same thing.
Yeah, on an episode of AEW, tries the thing off the top rope, lands directly on his head. They actually had to wrap that match up early too. He missed some time. I don't know if it was related to that or not, but it's not good. I don't like seeing that sort of thing.
It's really a shame to end a classic match. This was possibly one of the top 10 matches, and it has to end with a botch and a painful landing, and then a rushed improvised finish to get them out of there.
So that gets us to the end of the show. Would you say that Lesnar versus Angle is your best match for this one?
Yes, this is definitely the best match of the night. There was just like a back and forth, a true showing. Each person showed what they could do, and they allowed the other person to show what they could do without being too ridiculous. It didn't become a finisher marathon with a bunch of false finishes like The Rock and Stone Cold did. These two guys brought their A game the entire time. And even though Brock had that horrible landing, it's still commendable that he tried it. And you could see how excited the crowd was that he was going for it. Except for the old man that was in the front row that had his jacket on the entire time.
He's ready to go, man.
Right. Everybody's standing up and cheering, and he's just standing there with his arms crossed. And like, all I could think about was like those Progressive insurance commercials where like, you don't want to become your parents, and that's him right there in the front row. Like, he's just thinking about the parking lot.
Yeah. Let's not talk about leaving before we even get started. So I have to admit, that's me. As the older I get, that's me at any live event, like basketball games, like end of the third quarter, I'm done.
Yeah, I'm thinking about leaving. I'm just like, oh, the garage is going to be horrible.
Yeah, it's going to take an hour. Anyway, so that one was my favorite match too, without a doubt. It's far and away the best like in-ring stuff that we saw this time around. Booker T and Triple H was probably my runner-up if I was going to pick one.
Yeah.
Again, just sort of for the in-ring work, even though didn't disagree with the finish. Did you have a worse match for this one?
Yeah, so I flagged The Undertaker versus Big Show and A-Train as the worst match.
Ugh, me too.
I didn't care about the match. They did nothing during that match to make me care about it. I don't know if part of it was just me being spoiled, that I know The Undertaker's going to win, that this isn't the end of the streak, but I don't know. It was bad booking for The Undertaker, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's not good. And there's no drama here either, because you also know, like at the time, even, in retrospect, we know how long the streak goes, but even at the time, he's not going to lose to these two clowns, so there's no drama. There's no drama, no suspense. So that was bad. Also, I had to look at Albert's hairy self the whole time, and I wasn't into that at all.
Ugh.
What was your oh shit moment for this one?
I mean, that's Brock landing on his head. Like,
Yeah,
oh God, like the moment that I saw that WrestleMania 19 was our next one, I knew that it was,
yeah, that one.
yeah, like that's the one that stands out from this show. And that's the big moment. And I feel for him.
Yeah, it's a bad way to wrap it up. So I said, "Oh shit," but not in a good way. When I realized we were going to have to watch Limp Bizkit not once but twice during this show, that was not welcome. Was not appreciated. Still mad about having to Google those lyrics. So, all right, what about your overall rating?
All right, so my overall rating, I'm giving it a 3.
Okay.
And it's because Brock and Kurt save what was otherwise a really bland card. Now, Brock and Kurt also lose a few points because the last live shot of WrestleMania is Angle and Brock hugging, breaking kayfabe. As I said at the end of Austin and The Rock, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I kind of understand why Angle's hugging Brock. He's making sure that the dude's not paralyzed and not like and is able to talk.
Can you feel? Can you feel this? Can you
Yeah.
feel this?
Like how
Do you
many
have
fingers am I holding up?
You have any numbness or tingling?
But like we've seen The Rock and Stone Cold wrestle before. This match happened out of Stone Cold's request. Stone Cold wanted The Rock to be his last opponent, but The Rock doesn't look like he has his heart in it, and that's bad. The music is horrible.
The music is really bad.
The Undertaker had an amazing match at WrestleMania 18, but now he's got a mid. This match was the caliber of a mid-card SmackDown episode. Like you wouldn't even end an episode of SmackDown with this match, let alone put it on the WrestleMania card, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Chris Jericho and Shawn was okay. You could see Jericho waiting for Shawn a lot during that match because Shawn just didn't have the speed anymore. I didn't like how Booker T and Triple H ended. It was a great match. I just didn't like how it ended. McMahon versus Hogan was unnecessary and poorly put together. And I would honestly tell anyone if they wanted to watch this WrestleMania to fast forward for 3 hours to get to the Brock and Angle, and then
turn it off right when Brock climbs up the rope,
and then turn it off when you see Brock climbing the ropes.
Yeah,
and like despite WWE returning WrestleMania to the massive stadiums like they did in WrestleMania 3 and WrestleMania 8, the card isn't special.
No.
I really blame that on them doing like 10 to 12 pay-per-views a year at this point. You can't build heat, you can't build tension between storylines if every 3 weeks there's a pay-per-view.
Right.
Like it loses its specialness no matter what you do. You could put WrestleMania in the Roman Coliseum and like sell it. But if you're doing 11 other shows during the year that are on the same caliber of storytelling, no one's going to give a shit.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of, like you said, dilution of the brand going on here. And like you said, everything gets blown off, every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks. So there's none of these long running programs like we've seen in the past that actually have really great payoffs, So I think I was going back and forth between a 2.5 and a 3, and maybe I'll just go with a 3. So we don't have to fight about it. But I think, I agree with everything you said. Some of the undercard here is better than I expected it to be. That, like you said, that Shawn versus Jericho match, the women's match even, the team angle with Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero versus the triple threat match, that one was actually really solid. I like that one a lot. And, of course, that Booker T match that we talked about. So, I don't know. I think the things that bring it down for me are the Hogan versus Vince McMahon match, which was dumb. The lackluster Rock and Stone Cold. I think sort of the rampant sexism in the TNA parts with the Miller Lite whatever girls is just so gross and long and annoying, and the music is terrible. And yeah, I think that's it. I think I'm going with a 3 for this one as well.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. And like the women's match was good.
It was.
And the triple threat tag match was good. But again, it's overbooked and it's fogging things up. So
yeah, agreed.
You could have done something in the story to somehow like just have it Eddie Guerrero and Chavo versus Team Angle, or
yeah,
or just have them have a match against Chris Benoit and Rhino. Like,
Yeah.
it didn't need to be a tag championship match because honestly, Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas were incredibly bland in that match. And I think that's part of their gimmick, is that they're bland.
Right.
They're very, very bland. They're technically skilled, just like Kurt Angle, but they're bland. And that's kind of what, like, Kurt Angle's story has always been, that he's bland. He's like, rivalry with Stone Cold. Stone Cold would attack with the beer truck. Kurt Angle comes back with a milk truck.
Right.
So I understand it, but it's still, there was this something during this entire WrestleMania that wasn't holding my attention. It's really, I think what it really is that the brands are split. There's too much talent. They're trying to do too much in a show, and then they're also doing too many pay-per-views, so nothing really builds tension. So you didn't have the blow-off of Hogan versus Macho Man after like a 3-year friendship and tag team, and then like a falling out for a year because Hogan keeps making weird passes at Elizabeth, right? You don't have the Macho Man versus George the Animal Steel tension building where like George Steele was running off with Elizabeth for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
So, I mean, back then you could argue that those stories were a bit too drawn out, but they also had a different size audience.
Those stories too, I think, were a continuation of some of the territory things, right? Where you'd put two guys together and they'd be in a program together for a year easily, right? And they travel around different territories doing basically the same show for an all new crowd each night. So somewhere along the line that sort of dynamic and that model shifts to realizing, this is a television show, and people need a quicker payoff. We're not going to be able to just show the same thing and hope that the people in the crowd haven't already seen it. So we're going to have to kind of assume that they've seen it because it's been on national TV at this point.
Yeah, but I would argue that they didn't need that. Like, they were doing fine when it was just WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and Royal Rumble. That's
plenty.
Right. That's 4 a year, and they were excellent shows. They got you excited to watch.
Yeah.
And you knew that there would be a legitimate possibility of the championship turning over. You didn't know if someone might come down and interfere and take the story in a whole new direction or something like that. You don't have that anymore just because it's like, oh, well, it's 3 Raws and then a pay-per-view.
Right. And I would say we are here at the end of February of 2022. So for this year already, we've had to sit through 3 pay-per-views. There was the day one on New Year's Day for WWE. There was the Royal Rumble, of course, and then there was the Elimination Chamber just a week or 2 ago. And I can tell you that's way too many.
Right, and it looked like that they were actually trying to start to scale them back, and then suddenly they come out with a ton of them this year. And 2003 is about the time that like my taste starts waning in WWE a little bit, just because it's too many pay-per-views, and like they're charging full price for these pay-per-views too at this point. So it's like it's 3 Raws, and then you got to pay $30 to watch the pay-per-view, and then it's 3 more Raws, and then it's another $30 for a pay-per-view, and it's too much. I stopped ordering the pay-per-views. I started missing things in the storylines, just kind of fell out.
I think it's sort of a change in business model too, right? As opposed to trying to go out and make new fans, they're trying to pump as much money out as they can as the existing fans, and that's sort of monetizing every single part along the way. So anyway, lots of changes. I think you're right. This actually sort of does mark a shift. And the brand split and the proliferation of talent that I think gets us directly to the 2-night WrestleMania that we've seen, or that we will see here in a few weeks. As we do on every event review episode, we like to end by paying tribute to the men and women from that event who are no longer with us. For this episode, that list is Chris Benoit, Howard Finkel, Eddie Guerrero, and Roddy Piper. Well, that'll do it for this episode. Again, thanks very much for listening. You can find us on allthewrestlemanias.podbean.com. That's the home for our podcast. We also have the allthewrestlemanias.wordpress.com, which is the original blog. You can drop us comments at any of those locations. You can send us an email at WrestlemaniaBlog@gmail.com. You can tweet at us on Twitter at WrestlemaniaPod. We're very excited and happy to have your feedback. And thanks again for listening.